Wages and jobs. Three ideas to make an impact on those problems are to change the tax law to increase flexibility, which would open up more options for job sharing, and also tie the minimum wage to a multiple of the CEO's pay. First, let's talk about job sharing. Remember the Jetsons? Automation was supposed to be a personal benefit to each of us. Instead, companies own the robots and reduce the size of the workforce. We need a new paradigm for sharing the benefits of automation. One of the barriers to having more employees to do fewer jobs is the cost of benefits packages. If the law is changed to get the employer out of the healthcare business, companies could be more flexible in offering job sharing, parental leave, or using part-time workers for seasonal work. Income inequality is an ongoing problem. So we need to figure out a way to share the wealth of automation. And one way to do that is to incentivize the decision makers at a company to raise the base salary. So I suggest a high marginal tax bracket for executive compensation that's based on a multiple of the lowest wage paid. So I'd eliminate the idea of a minimum wage. For one thing, I'd make it possible to pay a lower wage to teenagers, but keep the maximum hours worked provision, so that young people could get started in the workforce, and companies like supermarkets and so forth could hire young people to do some of the work. The thing that really surprised me when I was doing the research for this was the effect of stock options on executive pay. And if you look at this chart, the executive pay in the United States is adjusted for the year $2,000. So an adjusted income, if you look at what CEOs have made since the mid-30s up through the end of the 70s and early 80s, it was close to $1 million. But then it started to take off at the end of the 80s. And what we see here in yellow are the CEO income in stock options. And even adjusted for year 2000, instead of $1 million a year for CEO pay, it's now the average is up over $9 million. And most of that is stock options. So what I suggest we do is we place a high marginal tax of about 75% on executive wages greater than 100 times the lowest paid adult part-time worker. So in other words, if somebody's working 20 hours a week, you would figure out what they would earn if they were working 40 hours a week for a year and call that the base. And then you take it 100 times that. So let's say somebody's earning $20,000 a year that way. It's about $10 an hour. And so if the executives were making more than $2 million, the amount over $2 million would be taxed at 75%. So if the executive wanted to keep more of his income, he would be incentivized to raise the lowest paid or minimum wage at their company. So for every $1,000 that the person at the bottom made, the executive could have $100,000 of his income at a lower tax rather than the 75%. So I want to tie the decision maker's income to the lowest wage. Other ideas for 2020 are found on my website, my YouTube playlist, or you can go to pctraining.net/vision.htm for a menu.